Could the Miami Dolphins trade second-year running back Jaylen Wright? Well, unfortunately, he didn't look that good in the preseason. He got banged up, which forced him to miss the first 2 games of the season. And then Ollie Gordon has really taken over his role as RB2, which leads me to believe there could be a way where Miami deals away the former Tennessee running back, because he is kind of pushed down this depth chart. Yeah, he returned in week 3 against the Buffalo Bills, but Ollie Gordon still got most of the RB2 snaps, and Gordon looked extremely good in the preseason. He looked very solid against the Bills and looked promising in his limited opportunities against the Colts and Patriots in the first 2 weeks. And I mean, this is the question that just needs to be asked. Do we need Jaylen Wright? It would be one thing if Jaylen Wright looked explosive, looked agile, and was dominating in the preseason, looking like a really solid RB2. But Jaylen Wright looked very, very bad. He couldn't find the right holes. He didn't even average 2 yards a carry in 2 preseason games. So it's like, you watch that, you watch Gordon, and there really shouldn't be a debate at this point who the better running back is, which is why maybe the Dolphins try to trade Jaylen Wright. And this is further evidence that maybe Miami feels that way as well, because on Thursday Night Football in week 3 against the Bills, this was the running back snap percentage. Achane got 47, Gordon got 15, Jaylen Wright did not see the football field. And I'll echo the sentiment home one more time. I know it was his first game back with a lower body injury, but with how well Ollie Gordon has looked, how bad Jaylen Wright looked in the preseason, you have to ask the question, why hold on to a second-year RB in Wright if you can trade him when you have Ollie Gordon cementing himself as the RB2 and change of pace back to Devon Achane? And I'll say this, folks. If the Dolphins do make a trade between now and the November 4th trade deadline, we will have you covered. So subscribe today. Join the channel for daily Dolphins coverage. You look at what Ollie Gordon did in NFL Week 3 against Buffalo in just 15 snaps. It was very good. I also want to make note of this. 9 carries for Gordon in 15 snaps is an incredible percentage of touches to snap ratio, which also I will argue is a little bit rough that it's that high, because you don't want to telegraph, hey, Ollie Gordon's on the football field 70% of the time. They're going to give him the football. So you do got to be careful of that. But 4.2 yards per carry, reached the end zone on the opening drive for Miami, converted a couple 3rd and shorts and 4th and shorts, and forced missed tackles, 4 of them as well, in just 9 touches. He was actually graded out, by the way, as one of the best running backs in week 3. Out of running backs that saw the football field 10 times, just minimum 10 snaps in week 3. He was 5th in overall PFF grade, 9th in missed tackles forced, 8th in yards after contact, and 8th in first downs picked up amongst NFL running backs. So Gordon looked really good in that week 3 performance. Like, it's just hard not to argue that Ollie Gordon needs more snaps. Achane is an absolute weapon. He's so fun to watch. But he borderline is more used as a receiver, I feels like, than a running back at this point. So with Gordon looking good, Achane as dual of a threat as he is, that just leaves Jaylen Wright out in the cold as that RB3, lucky to get on the football field 4 or 5 times a game. Not touching the ball, just on the field. And I'll go back to his preseason deficiencies, because in the first 2 preseason games before he got hurt in that week 2 preseason game against the Lions, he had 13 carries for 19 yards. That's terrible. I mean, that is not even 1.5 yards per carry. It's actually just around that number. He did reach the end zone, but he also fumbled while the Dolphins were in the red zone of a preseason drive. So about 1.5 yards per carry, a fumble. He just couldn't get anything going. And you can't even argue. It's like, oh, yeah, the Dolphins' second and third O-lines are bad, which is true, but that's the same O-lines that Ollie Gordon was running behind in the preseason. Like, Jaylen Wright simply is not as good as Ollie Gordon. I hate to say it because I really like Jaylen Wright coming out of college, and I really thought he was going to be in for a big second year. But the injury and with how well Ollie has looked, how are you going to justify playing Jaylen Wright over him? And if that's the case, you should think about trading him because there's no place on this roster for Jaylen Wright long term. So, pin comment on today's show. Would you consider trading Jaylen Wright? Type Y for yes, type N for no. Like I said, pin comments. Okay, two bad breaks, scroll down, let it play, and answer today's question. If it's not abundantly clear to you at home right now, sadly, I would consider trading Jaylen Wright because I don't see a future with him on this Dolphins roster. And I'm not the only one seeing this. This is from an outsider's perspective, but the NFL draft analyst and scout for ESPN, Matt Miller, said that just before the Week 3 games kicked off on Sunday, so on Friday afternoon, Friday morning to be exact, he was spitballing, says, maybe the Chiefs should trade for Jaylen Wright. The Chiefs are a team that could use a running back. Isaiah Pacheco, Kareem Hunt, they don't really have a long-term running back over in Kansas City, and maybe could use some explosiveness. So I understand the fit there, but I want to tie this back into Jaylen Wright because if the Dolphins do think about moving on from him, since they have Ollie Gordon, Nate Chan as their top two running backs going forward in all likelihood, I could see Wright getting a lot of tension potentially at the trade deadline on November 4th. As a former fourth-round pick, Miami had him very high on their board, was very excited about bringing Wright into their building, but it just hasn't panned out. And this is a guy that ran around a 4.4 40-yard dash coming out, very speedy, has solid size, good pass protector. Like, I could see teams lining up to potentially trade for Jaylen Wright. We mentioned the Kansas City Chiefs. The Arizona Cardinals are a team I think could be interested, especially after James Conner suffered that real gruesome lower body injury in Week 3. His career very well might be over, and they could be looking for a nice complementary back to Trey Benson, who projects to be the new lead man in Arizona. I think the Vikings could be interested. Aaron Jones injured, older player, needs someone to complement Jordan Mason. The Dallas Cowboys could be interested. Yeah, they drafted Jaden Blue and have Javonte Williams, but that running back room doesn't sell me. And I'll throw the Houston Texans out there. Joe Mixon's on the PUP list. No one knows when he's going to return. Woody Marks has been Nick Chubb is kind of old and declining. These 5 teams could very well be interested in adding another running back, and I think anybody would be interested in Jaylen Wright if the Dolphins made him available. More coming up here, including what I think he could get in trade compensation. But this episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. You and I make decisions every single day. Well, the right decisions on Prize Picks can get you paid. Being right is the right thing to do on Prize Picks. So simple. Just pick 2 to 6 player stat projections, more or less. If you get your picks right, you could cash in. Prize Picks invented the flex play, which means you could still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. Double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. I have a lengthy entry in for Monday Night Football. 6 players. I went to the max. More than on Amon-Ra and Derrick Henry touchdowns. I think they both get into the end zone. More than Lamar Jackson rush attempts. More than Sam Laporta receiving yards. More than Tyler Loop fantasy score. And more than Zay Flower receptions. If you didn't get the memo, I think it's going to be a high-scoring game between the Lions and Ravens tonight. Join me and the millions of others. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Links in the description and comments of today's video. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. Speaking of right, I think he's got trade value, man. I think he does. I just have a hard time believing a running back that was drafted early 4th round in 2024, ran a 4.4 40-yard dash, and possesses a pretty solid understanding of what it takes to be a good pass-protecting running back, can't find work in the NFL. And it's not, to me, that Jaylen Wright is bad. I want that abundantly clear. That is not why I'm making this video about Miami potentially trading Jaylen Wright. I am making this video to illustrate that Ollie Gordon, Achane are your two running backs of the future, so why hold on to Wright while his value depreciates? You could trade him now while his value is probably at the highest because he still is not a full 2 years into his career. And we saw a team do this earlier this season already with the Jacksonville Jaguars. They traded Tanks Bigsby right before the season, or actually right after week 1. I think it was like 2 days after the first week of the season, to the Eagles for a 5th and a 6th round pick. The Jaguars realized, we're going to stick with Travis Etienne. We really like what we got in the rookie Byshal Tootin. And we'll ride with those two guys in the future. No need to keep another third running back here just to have them. They rode with their two guys, Etienne and Tootin, and they're moving forward. Well, that's what I'm asking Miami to do. Now, do I think Jaylen Wright can go out and fetch 2 day 3 picks? No, probably not. Bigsby was very productive at the end of last season for the Jaguars. I think he had like 4 touchdowns. He had like 600 plus yards. I'm not going to act like Wright is going to get that same package. It's more or less the same line of thinking as the Jags. They realize they have 3 solid running backs. Miami has 3 solid running backs. You don't need 3. You just need 2. So the Jags pick their 2 and Etienne and Tootin. I think the Dolphins should pick their 2 with Achane and Gordon and move the 3rd one. And I think Miami could easily get either 1 5th round pick or 1 6th round pick. I don't think they'll get 2, but they could get one of them. Former 4th round pick. Now, the one thing that will be disappointing to me a little bit is that Miami did trade up to get him. Remember, they didn't have a 4th round pick in the 2024 NFL draft. So what did they do? They traded their 3rd round pick in 2025 to get that. It's a weird one where the Dolphins value Jaylen Wright at the time so highly that they traded a future 3rd round pick to get him in the 4th round pick, so 4th round. So it's a little bit odd to see the Dolphins do that, and I know it's tough to sink that assets and capital into Jaylen Wright and ultimately have it fizzle out within a year, but the point still remains that I don't think Miami really has a reason to keep Jaylen Wright with how good Ollie Gordon has looked complimenting Devon Achane. And if you're asking, well, if you trade Jaylen Wright, you would need a 3rd running back. Well, I'm fine just signing Jeff Wilson to the active 53-man roster. Miami can do that very easily. Wilson's been elevated from the practice squad twice. You get 3 elevations for a player on the P squad per season. And obviously, if you traded Wright for a pick, you vacate a spot on the 53-man roster, and then Jeff Wilson could just fill that void. I think that's something Miami should absolutely consider, and it's something I'm absolutely fine with if a team comes calling and offers a 5th or 6th round pick for Jaylen Wright. All right, I'll do it for today's show. As I mentioned earlier, if the Dolphins end up making any trade before the deadline revolving Jaylen Wright, Tyreek Hill, we will have you covered. So hit that sub button and join the Fins family today.